Hello, children. Hope you're all fine and enjoying online classes. There are some pictures coming up, children. Just see and answer my questions. Which tree is this? This is a mango tree. Which tree is this? This is a coconut tree. Which tree can you see in this picture? This is a Christmas tree. Good. Which tree is used to decorate as a Christmas tree? Pine tree. Wonderful. How do you recognize a tree that this is mango tree, this is coconut tree, and this is papaya, and so on? All trees do not look similar. Different trees have different leaves, structures, and shapes. However, each tree is beautiful in its own way. Did you ever see a pine tree's leaves? They look like needles. Today, we shall read a lesson in which a pine tree wishes to have different kinds of leaves. The name of the lesson is The Little Pine Tree. Let's see few new words before going into the lesson. What do you wish to become when you grow up? I guess many of you wish to become a teacher. The meaning of wish is a deep desire. For example, I wish to become a teacher. He plucked a fruit from the tree. Plucked means pulled suddenly. For example, he plucked an apple from the tree. She likes to drink tea instead of juice. The meaning of instead of is in place of. For example, my mother drank tea instead of juice. The water shone in the sunlight. The meaning of shone is sparkled. Sentence: the sun shone bright. These are the new words that we come across in this lesson, children. There was a little pine tree in the forest. He was very sad because he had no leaves but only long needles. He was not happy with the needles that he had. One night he was very sad and wished to have pretty golden leaves and went to sleep. Later that night, a fairy came by and gave the little tree golden leaves, which he had wished for. When the pine tree woke up the next morning, he was surprised. He had golden leaves all over, and he was very happy with the golden leaves. He danced all morning. But soon a man who was walking through the forest saw the golden leaves and plucked them all and took them away in his bag. The little tree cried a lot and wished for glass leaves instead of golden leaves and went to sleep. Later that night, the fairy came and granted his wish. The little tree looked pretty with the glass leaves, and he liked them very much. But that afternoon, the sky became dark. A strong wind shook the little pine tree. All his glass leaves fell down. The little pine tree was sad again. He was not happy with glass leaves. Then he wished for green leaves and went to sleep. The fairy once again granted his wish and gave him green leaves. When he woke up the next morning, his green leaves made him look just like the other trees. But soon, to his disappointment, a hungry goat came and ate all his green leaves. The little pine tree was sad again. At last, he had wished for his original long needles instead of gold, glass, and green leaves. That night, the fairy smiled and granted his wish. The next morning, the little pine tree was very happy to feel his needles back. At last, the little pine tree was happy to be himself with the long needles God has given him. The moral of the story is be happy with whatever you have. I hope you have liked the lesson, children. The name of the lesson is The Little Pine Tree. Now, let's read the lesson. As I read, you place your index finger on whichever line I read. Open your English readers, page number 37. Lesson number 5, The Little Pine Tree. In a forest grew a little pine tree. He was very sad. He had no leaves. Instead, he only had long needles. One night, the little tree said, I don't like needles. All the other trees in the forest have leaves. I want leaves too. But I want better leaves. I wish I had pretty golden leaves. And he went to sleep. Later that night, a fairy came by and gave the little tree golden leaves. The next morning, when the little tree woke up and shook his branches, he was very happy. He said, Oh, my leaves are so beautiful. No other tree has gold leaves, and he danced all morning. The little tree's golden leaves shone in the sunlight. A man who was walking through the forest saw the shining leaves. He plucked them all and took them away in his bag. Now, please turn the page, children, page 38, and keep placing your index finger on whichever line I read. The poor little tree cried, I don't want gold leaves anymore. I wish I had glass leaves. The tinkling of the glass leaves woke the little tree the next morning. How pretty they looked! No other tree was so bright. But that afternoon the sky became dark. A strong wind shook the little pine tree. All his glass leaves fell down. The little pine tree was sad again. He said, I will not have gold leaves and I will not have glass leaves. I wish I had green leaves. I want to be like the other trees. When he woke up the next day, his big green leaves made him look like the other trees. But soon a hungry goat came by. He saw the green leaves on the little tree and ate them up. The little tree said, I do not want leaves anymore. I wish I could have my long needles back. That night, the fairy smiled and gave the little tree his needles back. The next morning, the little tree was happy to feel his long needles. He said, gold leaves, glass leaves, and green leaves are all nice, but only long needles are good for a little pine tree like me. Try to read the lesson once again, children. Thank you.